This one is something I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time. This is about blockchain and how it improves information security, or cybersecurity, or security in general, however you want to put it, right? But how does blockchain improve cybersecurity? Now, first of all, when a lot of people think of blockchain, they think of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the killer app of the blockchain. Or they think of NFTs, which everybody are talking about right now. Everybody's talking about NFT this, NFT that, or Ethereum, because Ethereum, the price of Ethereum has gone way up, or Cardano, or whatever, right? So I'm not talking about necessarily the price of ADA or the price of name your favorite coin or token. I'm talking about actual use cases, other use cases other than store of value or assets. There's many different use cases of blockchain, going from taxation to energy to railways to right now IBM is using it, supply chain usages, enterprise, healthcare, insurance. There's so many different use cases for blockchain technology, not just money, not just assets, not just technical analysis of the tokens and stuff going up and down. And these will become much clearer as I go through this, because I want to demonstrate to you guys, show you guys where security, and I'm so surprised more people don't talk, more IT guys don't talk about this, about how powerful blockchain is. Especially in the world of security. There's so many security applications of blockchain technology, and I'm just surprised nobody talks about it. And what I'm going to do is to show you how it's effective. Is I want to show you how it differs between the differences between server, client versus blockchain, and then it'll make more sense. All right, so just from a high level, you'll see differences such as clear text by design. The servant-client model is what we use right now. Whenever you use your email, you are accessing a server through your client, which is your browser. If you are watching Netflix, you are accessing Netflix's server. Basically, all the stuff that we do on a regular basis is the client-server model. Even using the back end as a cloud is still client-server model. All right, I'm talking about client-server, what we all use right now, compared to blockchain. And one of the major issues with server-client model is that it's clear text by design, whereas blockchain is not. It's encrypted by design. Another issue that you have is privacy came years after client model, years after. I mean, this is just now. It's kind of a recent add-on to client server model, whereas blockchain uses it on a regular basis. Then there's fault tolerance. If the system goes down, what are you going to do if the server back end goes down, and server client model goes down all the time, and they have to do all of these extra steps to get fault tolerance and disaster recovery and all this stuff. But in blockchain, fault tolerance, you can't even have a blockchain technology without fault tolerance built in already. And then finally, I'm going to talk to you about how server client model, because it's by default has so many issues, security issues in it, how you need so much more security compliance and regulations on it. Whereas blockchain technology, I would argue, would require less. It's going to be easier to actually go through the security compliance. All right, let's start from the top here. Let's start off with clear text. So clear text, if you've been in this field for some time, you'll notice that if you're doing an assessment or whatever, if I'm doing a scan, what I notice is that a lot of the easy low-hanging fruit that I look for is legacy ports, protocols, and services. Things like port 21 or port 69, which is Telnet. The reason why is because by default, by design, when they were made in 1960s, FTP was clear text with no authentication, and so is Telnet, right? And then unless you actually implement some extra steps in there, it is going to remain clear text. So there's extra things you have to do to, and so let me explain clear. So clear text just means you hit send, and your message goes over the network, and anybody who's on the network can see it. Like with the correct tools, they'll be able to see exactly what you typed in and who it came from and who it's going to. That's what I mean by clear text. So the types of attacks that someone would be able to do is man-in-the-middle spoofing or sniffing the network to actually see those clear text messages. By design, SMTP, when it was originally made, SMTP, by the way, is mail. That's actual just mail, like sending actual email, was unauthenticated and unencrypted ASCII. So that's how, I mean, right now, like there's all different levels and layers that protect your email when it's going from point A to point B. You've got all kinds of encryption and digital signatures and all kinds of extra layers on top of it. But when it first came out, it wasn't like that. So by design, initially, the server client model has a bunch of clear text in there, and you got to do all these extra steps to actually manage the security on it. So now blockchain, compare that to blockchain. Once you understand, I'm just going to explain very quickly how it works, and you'll understand why by design all messages have to be encrypted. Let me explain why. I'm going to keep this pretty high level, and somebody put this together, this little diagram, this little infograph here, and I thought it was really, really good. And this is, for the sake of this explanation, we're talking about Bitcoin. But this can be just remember, it doesn't have to be sending Bitcoin. It could be sending any message. So step one is Alice wants to send a message or money to Bob, right? It could be either one, but let's say they're sending money. Alice is sending money to Bob, Bitcoin. And so when that request is made, a block goes out, and that block has to go over a whole it broadcasts over a bunch of nodes, right? This right here represents a bunch of computers that this message from Alice is going to go over. All of these nodes are going to all receive this message. So it has to be encrypted, right? Because it's going to all these different nodes. Now, what do these nodes do? These nodes, these computers, what they do is they have to validate the message. All of those computers they all get the message. It's encrypted, right? And they have to all agree on that this message is from Alice and it's going to Bob. Once all of these nodes agree, and keep in mind, it's all encrypted, they validate it and send it on its way. So that's what you're seeing in this next step right here. This next step is the validation process. The network has validated the message, the transaction, or the money, whatever, and send it on its way. Now, this message, one of the key components of blockchain is that it's permanent. You can't change it. It's non-reputable. That means that you can't go back. You can't say that you didn't send it. Alice can't go back and say, no, I didn't. I never sent that message. There's non-repudiation, and it's very transparent because all of those messages are going to be are permanently on the record, and anybody who's on that network can see the transactions between Alice and Bob and what was sent. And that's why it's imperative, it's important that it's actually encrypted. And then once all of these steps go through, Bob receives that money or that message. It can be money or a message, and it's going to use the same process. And so that's why the data must be encrypted, unlike the server client model. And I hope that makes sense. It's a very important feature of blockchain technology is that there's no middleman. There's no middleman. The reason how that's possible is that it's encrypted and it has to go through this cloud of all of these systems, and those systems all agree and validate the message and send it on its way. So that's how it gets around that going through a third party to send in a message or send money or whatever. And so by design, it's encrypting all messages because it has to. Another huge issue that blockchain solves is privacy. Personally identifiable information is not fully protected in the client-server model. And once I explain why, it's gonna make perfect sense. It's centralized. Let's take Facebook as an example. If you're using Facebook and you upload your information on there, right? You make an account, you put your first name, your middle name, your last name, your date of birth, your phone number, your email, right? And all the other personal information on there on Facebook, right? Really, trust is the first failure. One of my mentors used to tell me trust is the first failure, and it's a very cynical thing to say, but in this case, it's absolutely true. You trust them. Are they encrypting your data, your PII, your first name, last name, middle initial, all the other information you give them? Are they encrypting this information? Well, it's their network. They can encrypt it or not encrypt it. When it's stored there, do you think that they encrypt it? It's maybe. Here's the thing, though. Now, no matter where you put it, the insiders, whether it's encrypted or not, the insiders there have access to your information. The employees there, if they have to back up a server or something, at some point they're touching your information. It's a single point of failure from a security perspective because it's on one server. Now, it might be backed up on 3 or 4 other servers, but it's on one server. Now, let me enlighten you on that. Now, I thought this was fake when I first seen it. This little message here on the side here is from Mark Zuckerberg. Now, and this is not me trying to attack Mark Zuckerberg. I think he's a very smart dude, very talented guy. But this is what he said in 2006. He was, like I said, I thought this was fake, but it's real. He said, hey, he's talking to a friend on a chat. He says, hey, if you need to know about any information on anybody on Harvard, just ask me. I've got 4,000 emails, pictures, addresses. I think SSN, I think he meant here. So he put SNS. And his friend's like, what? How do you manage that one? And Zuckerberg says, people just submit it to me. And Zuckerberg's like, I don't know why they trust me. Those dumb Fs. Right? I thought this was fake, but this came from the Business Insider, and they got it from the New Yorker. And Mark Zuckerberg actually apologized for this. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you might be saying, well, Bruce, that's not true. And even if it was in 2006, right? That was when he was much younger. It's not what it used to be. It's changed. Well, let's think about what Mark Zuckerberg recently said. And this is not me attacking Mark Zuckerberg. I'm just trying to make a point here. So he says, this is more recent. He said, if people want to share more, the world will be more open and connected, a better world. This is what he believes. This is what he said. Quoting, he said, privacy must be overcome. Now, what does he mean by that? We got people through this really big hurdle of getting people to want to put their personal information out there, right? Okay. And then the last thing he says is control is the new privacy. He says what people want isn't complete privacy. They want control over who they can share it with. And you know what? Regardless of what Zuckerberg says, regardless of what you think about it, maybe you're okay with your information being on, your real information being out there on Facebook, and you trust them. Thing is, we're sharing our information with banks, with the DMV, with the local state government, right? And you might be fine with that. You're sharing it with YouTube. You're sharing it with Twitter. You're sharing it with all, TikTok, all these different organizations. It's private. It's a private institution in some of the cases, right? They can do what they want with the information. You're checking the box and saying, good to go. Terms of service agreed. I'm going to keep my stuff on there. You guys do what you want to do with my information. I'm just going to keep on posting videos, right? So, just think about that. Just recently, there was a breach with T-Mobile, I believe. T-Mobile has this huge breach. And even if you're like, well, I'm not with T-Mobile. So if you've ever been with T-Mobile, more than likely your stuff has been breached. So there's a serious problem here with this server client model and privacy. It's a serious problem. Now, let me explain to you how blockchain is a little bit better. Okay. So in this model here, what you're seeing is Alice. Over here, this little icon right here represents Alice. And Alice wants to make a purchase on this merchantaccount.com site, right? So rather than put her first name, her middle name, her last name, her, I don't know, credit card information and where she lives, rather than doing all of that, instead, she uses her cryptocurrency wallet. And that cryptocurrency wallet, it is using a pseudonym, and the pseudonym is this. It's 1C3EB35A, and it's like this long list of numbers, right? And this right here is how she's gonna put this on there, and this pseudonym represents her to make the purchase. Now, she didn't put her first name, didn't put her last name, didn't put any of that information on merchant account A. She's just putting this code in there, pseudonym. It makes the transaction, and then she gets what she wants. And it's all tracked on the blockchain. And she did it with a pseudonym. And it's peer-to-peer, so there's no third party. So one of the other things that you have to do whenever it's centralized is you have to go, if you want to buy with PayPal, you've got to use PayPal. Your information has to be with PayPal and with the merchant. And then PayPal uses your information to go ahead, and so now your information is two different places, right? Your real name, real credit card information, all that stuff is in two different locations. And either one of those can be hacked. That's two more attack vectors for your information to get leaked or whatever. This is peer-to-peer. Like Bitcoin and blockchain allows you to go directly with the other person. And it doesn't have to be Bitcoin. It could be any one of the other blockchains. And it can be information. It doesn't even have to be money, right? The point is, blockchain allows you to go directly peer-to-peer with the other person that you're making the transaction with, rather than going through to a trusted third party. It's a trustless system because of the way that it's configured. And that the peer-to-peer factor and the pseudonym factor are two steps that allows you to better protect your PII, your personally identifiable information. And the way that it's able to do this is with public key and private key. So Alice is able to generate a public key using her private key. And so that private, now keep this in mind, this is crazy. So this private key allows you to create a public key that you can have expire after some time. Like you can literally have a system set up on the blockchain where this private key is kept with Alice, like maybe on her phone or something, right? And then she generates a public key that expires after maybe, I don't know, after a week or something. And then she can then give this information to whoever she wants it to. And she's not worried about this being leaked because it'll expire after some time. Now, you can do this same public key, private key stuff over blockchain with IDs, with wallets, with credit card numbers, with license, national numbers. Now, think of this. In the US, we have a social security number. Everybody's given this. It's a national number. When you're born, they give you this number. My kids ask me about this, and I explain to them, like, yeah, it's a number everybody has. They're like, wait, what? They're like, what if somebody steals it? I'm like, yeah, what if somebody steals it? That's a very good question, because if somebody steals it, it's a static number. Like it's a 9-digit number that somebody steals it, and they have their name and your location. They can literally set up another line of credit on and say that they're you, identity theft, right? And it's super hard to reverse that. It's an old system, like it was done in the 1940s or 50s or something like that. We need a change. Like this is an opportunity. This blockchain, public key, private key has been out for some time, but now you have an infrastructure that can actually implement something like this. And there's real world, use cases for this. It's already being implemented. One of those examples is called Atala Prism, Atala Prism, that's on the Cardano blockchain. So Cardano has Atala Prism, and I believe they've already implemented portions of it in Republic of Georgia, Ethiopia, and possibly a couple of other countries that they're trying to set this up. And this is really brilliant. It's an app on your phone that allows you just what I was talking about. It's like a public key, private key type thing, but it allows you to have a government ID. It allows you to share your university degree. Think about how effective that is. If you've ever gone to college, you know how important this is. Whenever you have to transfer to another college, you have to go to the school and get your transcripts. You got to go to school, pay a small fee, and then they'll send your transcripts a week or something later, right? If they can find them, to the other school. And sometimes they'll only accept it if it's directly from the other school. Like they have to mail it to the other school or fax it to the other school, your transcripts. If it was on the blockchain, you could then access your own records. You have the private key. You access your own records on blockchain. And then if you're at another school, you can just send those records to them. You'll have access. You pull it down because it verifies it's you with your private key. Verifies it's you. You pull down your records. Boom. You send it to the other person. It's authenticated. It's authenticated because it's you. You got your records. Now you send it directly to the next school. They have it. And you've given them access to that, just your school records. I mean, it's brilliant. And you can do the same thing with your health care, your health insurance, your proof of employment, all that stuff. So that is the advantage of having something like blockchain over just regular old school, the server client model that we use today. Another huge advantage that blockchain has over the server client model is disaster recovery, backups, and fault tolerance. Right now in the current server client model, and you can have fault tolerance, right? I'm not sitting here saying that there's no fault tolerance, but it's not there by default. You have to either purchase it or implement it. For example, if you have a web application out there and your organization has a web application and thousands of people a day are getting on there, right? But somebody wants to spam it. So what they do is they do a distributed denial of service attack on it, where they have some kind of a virus that's attacking not a virus. Well, what it is like an application that's sending a bunch of packets to your web application from like 1,000 different servers and systems all over the world. And it bogs down your web application. So one of the things that you can do to make sure that this doesn't happen, so that you have some fault tolerance, meaning something goes wrong but you can tolerate it, right? That's what the fault tolerance means. So you can get a load balancer. And you can either purchase one and put it in front of your web application, or you can purchase the service, something like Cloudflare, or there's other ones out there you purchase that service I think annually, and then they put it out there so that if you have this sudden increase of traffic or denial of service attack or whatever, the load balancer can offload some of that traffic to another system. Like they have a cloud where it'll offload some of that traffic to another system, and then you're good, right? That's one of the ways that you can have fault tolerance. And then of course backups, that you would just of course have another system that's going to back up full or incremental backup on your system that does it every week or every 2 weeks or whatever you put it in there. But all of that stuff has to be implemented on a centralized system. Basically, you have to get other centralized systems to supplement your system so that they can survive an attack and have disaster recovery in place, right? You have to do something to make sure that it will not collapse as soon as something goes wrong. So with blockchain, it's a little bit different because there's no single point of failure. By design, it's designed to have no central trusted administrator or centralized record. there's no single point of failure. So it's already made, like if in our example up here, if I can go back to our first example here, these nodes will have all the data on them. So you can't, what are you going to attack if it's on 50 different nodes in 5 different cities? What are you going to attack? Right? So in theory, if you had a system that was on blockchain, it would be way more resilient than a server client model. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is my specialty, which is compliance. So if you had an organization, your organization, for example, if your organization had all these things, it had fault tolerance built in, it was in there by design. You encrypted all data that's stored on the system's encrypted by design. And privacy is not an issue either. If you had all those things, me as a compliance person or an assessor, I come in and I've got to make sure that your system is GDPR compliant, right? Because we have to implement some European standards to make sure that you're protecting users' data. Or let's say you have to be in line with FISMA, and we have to make sure that you're encrypting. You have a certain level of encryption and encrypting all important data on your network. If it's easier for me to come in and say, yep, they're encrypting their data, they have fault tolerance, they have, all this stuff, it's going to make it. I'm not saying that you don't have to have any compliance with local and industry standards. I'm simply saying that if you have all this stuff in place, if you have the proper cybersecurity in place, information security in place, it's much easier for you to become compliant. So that is why I think that blockchain is, look, let me put it to you this way. If you are in this industry, if you're an IT person, if you are a cybersecurity person, if you're an information security person, if you're a cloud computing person, whatever your profession is, you should really look into blockchain technology. I'm not necessarily talking about Bitcoin. I'm not necessarily talking about Ethereum or Cardano or none of that, right? I'm not talking about buying tokens or coins. I'm talking about the actual back end, the actual technology itself is something that you should seriously look into reading up on, because this right here, if this is implemented, which I think it is, like it's slowly being rolled out in supply chains, IBM, Oracle's messing with it, Microsoft is messing with it, Google's messing with it in the back end, you might want to start looking at this, because this stuff right here is going to change the way. I think that the change is going to be as impactful as the internet itself. And I know that's hyperbolic. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but I think it may even be more influential on humanity as the internet has been. Because the more I read about this technology and the decentralized nature of it, it becomes very, very clear that this can change everything. And things I didn't talk about were like the fact that with blockchain technology, since it's distributed and it's not centralized, it's not controlled by Google, Alphabet, it's not controlled by Twitter, it's not controlled by there's no hosting, like nobody can just come in and shut it down. Because of that, because of the nature of it, it's absolute freedom of speech. You can't shut it down. You can't shut it down. Now, there's things you can do to kind of hide the messages or whatever, but it's still there. It's on the blockchain. All the messages are there. Other things I didn't talk about is because it's decentralized, nation states can't actually stop it. Not only can a Google or a Microsoft or a Facebook not stop it by kicking you off their platform, right? And I'm not talking about whether this is good or bad for humanity. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about facts. If there's no way to stop it because it's decentralized, that's true freedom of speech. You'll be able to say whatever you want, and nobody can take it down off if it's on a blockchain platform. It cannot be shut down. You can make it harder to access, like China has done. You can make it harder, but you can't stop it, right? It would be like trying to stop VPNs or something. Like China still hasn't been able to stop VPNs. And they haven't stopped cryptocurrency, to be honest with you. It's made it harder for their people to use it because they want everyone to use their cryptocurrency. But this right here could disrupt nation states. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'm looking at this technology and the more I know about it, the more I can see that this is going to really change humanity. Yeah. All right. Let me see what I got here. Get off my soapbox. I just really want to talk to you guys about this, and I'll do more stuff about blockchain technology because I really do think there's a lot of intersection between what we do, cybersecurity, information security, and blockchain technology. It's really innovative, and I don't see a lot of cybersecurity people talking about it. I don't see a lot of IT guys. I see a lot of developers talking about it, but I don't see a lot of industry guys like myself talking about it. And I think that it's kind of a lost opportunity because there's so much to it. And if we get in early, start learning it now, it kind of reminds me of cloud technology. When cloud technology, I don't know if you guys remember, if you guys have been in this career field long enough, but when cloud stuff, LAMP, started coming out and everyone's kind of talking about cloud technology and all this, and then all these companies start jumping on the bandwagon. It feels kind of, blockchain is kind of feeling like that, but way more impactful because it's dealing with money, and it's potentially going to disrupt some banks, the banking system. There's so many things outside of money that is going to disrupt, but money is definitely disrupting money. That's for sure.